Hello again, welcome back to Makai Kingdom. Um, Today's episode, you probably already saw the title. Slightly disappointing news, but not really. So I was playing the game, and I was playing my save file, not the one that I have been using to make these videos, and I accidentally deleted over I saved over the file that I had been recording to make my gameplay videos. So that file's gone. Um, I, to be honest, I kind of consider it, I don't consider it a huge loss. I consider it kind of a happy accident, to be honest. And I'll tell you why. In uh, in that game, um, I already made the point. I said this in an earlier video. That file was in the post game. I had demonstrated everything you need to know in order to destroy every challenge in the game. I showed you how to farm mana. I showed you how to do food dungeons. I showed you how to make your character stronger. There's not very much left that I could have done in that save file that would have been entertaining enough to make videos out of. Um, so um, there are a couple things left that are sort of advanced and specific that I'd like to make videos about and put on the internet because it's information that I haven't been able to find anywhere else. Um, so I'd like to give people who like the game access to it. Um, so what I think I'm going to do moving forward is with this video, I'm kind of just going to give a generalized sort of like dissertation about the way that I see the game. And then after that, I'll make a couple of more specific videos about ways to do things. But I wrote this up. In this video, I'm going to talk about the way that I see Makai Kingdom. I kind of touched on this before, but I'm going to go through it because all of this is a lot of this. I don't feel like there's a need for me to make videos about it. I might in the future, but just quickly, I want to go over this. So I've said in a previous video, the way I see the post game is that there are I said three or four. I decided to change it to four or five because I added one. But it's kind of one of those splitting hairs things because you know if you overthink this, there's a bunch of stuff you can add, like turning the game on is a key to the post game because you can't get there if you're not playing the game, right? So like I could put a lot more, but I decided to focus on these five. So um, what I added is this gamble status. I consider gamble status to be a key to the post game because early on, um, it this is kind of like an early on thing. Early on, you use gamble status, or you can use gamble status to make a couple of really impressive like leaps forward in terms of your uh, progression. We made really good use of it in stage 4 or 5. I made a video about that. Um, you're also most likely going to be using it in your first food dungeon, at least if you get there quickly. Because those enemies, those what are they called? Scrap metal enemies, are defensively really, really tough. And if you're throwing 8 of them out of bounds, and the one you've got left is like level 2000 or whatever, the first time you do a food dungeon, the odds of you being able you're not going to defeat it with your level 100 character. So I consider gamble to be kind of a key to the post game. At the very least, it speed things up. You can argue that it's not 100% essential, but I mean, none of this stuff is 100% essential. The reason these 5 things, the reason I consider them keys to the post game is that once you have these, you're able to play the game in a way that exponentially increases the speed of your progression. So the first one is gamble because it allows you to kill things that you have absolutely no business being able to kill. And it gives you access to all of that experience. So gamble's the first one. The second one is chef unlocked. And I've talked about this in the past. Once you have chef unlocked, you can wish for food markets, you can farm food, and the chef class itself gives you access to that times 2 food experience bonus. So uh, it becomes a lot faster and easier to get food, and on top of that, your food effectively, the effect of it is doubled. So unlocking Chef is a represents a huge increase in the speed at which you gain experience, and thus the speed at which you progress. Okay. So a level 100 character. This is an important milestone because you need to be level 100 or higher to wish for food dungeons. And food dungeons, again, represent an enormous um, increase in the speed at which you can gain experience. Having a convenient, quick little 3x3 grid of very high experience enemies that are always unarmed and that you can always, throw as many of them as you want out of bounds down to the last one. Having access to that is a big, big deal. Okay. The box. The box gives you access to the times 50 multiplier for mana. It is essential for being able to do things like wish for food dungeons. So having access to a box is a big deal. I recommend getting one really early by doing like a level 1 free dungeon and just like either save scumming it or just doing them over and over again until you find one. It's worth it to find one at really low levels. Um, and there's a good chance that you'll find one quicker than you would if you were like to progress through the chapters to I think it's stage 8-4 is guaranteed to always have a box there. But I don't like going for that one. What I like doing is stopping progressing through the chapters entirely after stage 4 or 5, because then after you get your box, you can go into chapter 6 and you can I guess I won't spoil it. There's a specific wish that you can make in chapter 6 that if you progress past chapter 6, you won't be able to make that wish on your first playthrough. So I like to do some like post game stuff right after I clear stage 4 or 5 the first time. I like to stop my chapter progression there, and instead of going all the way to 8-4 to get my first box, I like just doing a level 1 free dungeon. Okay, so and then there's Manosphere. This one is kind of optional, but it is a time saver. Um, a, the good thing about the class is called, like the strategy guide calls them Manosphere. I've seen people call them Beholders. I've seen people call them things like Cyclops or Eyeball, or they're uh, they're one of the 13 basic monster classes that you have to unlock by defeating one in a battle. And the interesting thing about them is that they have a very high they award an abnormally high amount of mana when killed. So what I really the way that I like to use them is early on I will wish for a food dungeon, and I'll make one of these and just use gamble status to level it up some in a food dungeon. You get it to like level 300 something, 400 something, or whatever, and then you can kind of use it as though it were a facility. As far as the box trick is concerned, because Manosphere units, they give comparable mana when killed to facilities. Uh, a fair number of people know about the box trick in Makai Kingdom, and they know about destroying facilities to earn mana, but I have never seen anybody on the internet mention that this one class, it's the only one, you can check the strategy guide, this one class gives as much mana when killed as a facility. And in fact, the highest tier of it, the 6th tier version of this class, is tied with castles for the highest mana when killed value in the game. So those are really good when you're at the point of first starting food dungeons, because after you do your first food dungeon, your necessity for mana goes way, way up, but you're not necessarily at the point where you can survive wishing for a facility in order to do the box, in order to get more mana via the box trick. So early at that point in the game, using a manosphere as though it were a facility can save you having to, sacrifice your like level 3 or 400 uh, uh, character that you have now because you did a food dungeon, having to sacrifice them because you need a facility to get more mana, um, to wish for more food dungeons, is a little bit self-defeating. So instead, you can use a Manosphere as kind of like a facility that you don't have to wish for. It's like a facility that you can level up in food dungeons, and you can kind of level a Manosphere sort of like side by side with whatever your high level character is, until they get to the point that they can survive wishing for a facility. And then if you want, you can kind of let the Manosphere go by the wayside for a while, and then but then once you get to the meta, to the final meta, Manosphere becomes good again because you might as well like have a team of them, like six of them, because they speed up mana farming. The meta method of mana farming is to have like a team of six of these Manospheres, all at max level, and all of them with the plus mana skill, and to I've shown this in a video. You invite them in a cluster around the tome in stage 3-4 whenever you do your mana trick, and that will earn you mana much faster. Like you can get to the point where in less than 5 minutes, like probably 3.5 minutes, you're earning mana cap. Like you're earning 10 million mana minus one. That's the cap. All right, so that was just a quick explanation of the five, 3 to 5, something like that, depending on if you want to count, gamble status as one of them. It's like 3 to 5 things that I consider keys to the post game, and the videos that I've made show what I think is a good, quick way to achieve all of that. We did it. I mean, you might have been watching. We did it in well under 10 hours. I think that I could have done it even quicker if I weren't, explaining things as I was going. It can be done in 4 to 6 hours. Um, so that's what this means. Okay, so the question then becomes like, what's the best way to do things in Makai Kingdom? Like, what are you actually doing in Makai Kingdom? What's the point? So the way I think about it, there are four things that matter in Makai Kingdom: your characters, your vehicles, your facilities, your items. Um, and this is kind of in descending order of how, um, yeah, this is kind of in descending order of how complicated they are. So we'll start at the top. So characters. There are two kinds of characters. You've got your generic units and your overlord slash guest characters. Your generic units are more versatile because they can incarnate as different classes. They have access to a huge list of skills. Um, they have access to the tank experience 100% ability, which makes them easy to mass produce. You can pack 10 of them or 9 of them. In addition, no, 10 of them, because the pilot can be a generic too. You pack 10 of them in the Yoshitsuna, and you can literally level 10 of them at once. In a future video, I might show how to do that. But they're basically they're versatile and they grow quickly, but they have vulnerabilities that Overlord and guest characters don't. Um, so in order to gain access to generic characters, I mean, you can find them. You can find them from items, obviously. Uh, Let me write that down here. Cone fine. Sorry. Yeah, you can find them to items. Um, there are 13 basic monster job classes that have to be unlocked by defeating one, either in any dungeon, in an Overlord dungeon or in a free dungeon. Um, and there are basic job monster classes, and then there are unlockable job monster classes that have to be unlocked by meeting prerequisites, which is leveling up characters. So you can kind of think of it as, in order to gain access to these, you need experience, and I would say, to gain access to the higher tiers, you also need mana, because it costs mana to incarnate as the highest tiers of classes. Um, so there's that. You also kind of need like good confined items in order for them to have good stats. and you also kind of need start items to develop them. Yeah, so I should have said this beforehand. So going through this item to item, I'm going to talk about the I've got a topic listed here. I've got like kind of what they're good for here, and then I've got what you need in order to develop them here. And the point of this at the end of it, hopefully you'll see that there's only a handful of things you need uh, in order to develop everything as much as you can develop it. You know, like it's 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 actually Makai Kingdom is actually not a particularly complicated game. Okay, so anyway, that's generic units. Oh, I'll talk about that in the next topic. Okay, so the next topic we've got Overlord and guest characters. So the main difference between Overlord and guest characters is that uh, there's a few important differences. One really important difference is that Overlord characters cannot wish for facilities. Um, and in previous videos, you've seen me. What I'll do is I'll have a generic unit and I'll have them at level 1 and wishing for a hut over and over again just in order to quickly reincarnate through items that have stars on them in order to stack stored stars. Overlord characters cannot do that. Your Overlord and guest characters cannot do that at all. You kind of have to develop them the hard way. Every single time they reincarnate, they first have to be leveled up to at least a level equal to 2 times their current stored stars. So if they've got, 20 stored stars, you got to get them to level 40 before they can wish for reincarnation, and then they have to spend mana on it, and it's going to be more than, the 4 mana that it costs a generic. So they're much more time intensive, they're much more mana intensive. Uh, um, it just takes a lot longer to develop them. The exception, kind of, but not really, is Drake. Um, the thing that makes Drake different is that he learns the tank experience plus 100% skill, or that's the skill that makes it so that he gains experience anytime the vehicle he is in earns experience. He earns the same amount. So you can kind of think of Drake as like halfway between a generic and the rest of the Overlords. He's got this trick up his sleeve that the Overlords don't have. That's very appropriate because he is like a sneaky, backstabbing, opportunist shit. But so that's one important difference between Overlords and generics is the amount of time it takes to develop them. Um, Another important difference is that they are immune to certain things that generics are not immune to. Um, they're immune to being thrown out of bounds, and they're either completely immune or very resistant to status effects. I think that there might be, I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think that there might be some things in the game that can inflict status effects regardless of immunity. And I think that, extension reveal events, certain extension reveal events might be like that, but I'm actually not sure. I think I might have known at one point, but I can't remember. But Overlords are definitely very resistant to status effects compared to generics. The exception, oh, I should put this here. Um, the exception is the Prinny God. Prinny Gods have comparable immunities to Overlord and guest characters. So um, those are the differences. Now I want to tell you an implication of those differences that I haven't seen anybody else on the internet talk about. Um, so you might wonder, well, if overlords are so time intensive to develop, what's the best way to do it? Um, and I'll tell you, I used to think that the best way to do it was to use gamble status. You incarnate your overlord in an item, preferably with as many stars in it as you can find. I typically save my 3-star and higher items for Overlords, but you incarnate them into a start item, and then you want to get them to you want to level them up at that point as quickly as possible so that they have the option of reincarnating. I used to think that the quickest way to do that was to have a what do you call it? Take them to a food dungeon and use gamble status and food to level them up. That's actually not the fastest way. There is a way that a low level, an extremely weak low level character can consistently do enough damage to kill even max level food dungeon enemies, and that is through they're called why don't I put it over here? Okay, yeah, they're called. I'll type it right here. What are they called? That's right, combo skills. And the two combo skills in the game are power strike and energy blast. I've demonstrated this in a previous video, but I'll repeat it here in case you forgot about it. Um, in one of my videos, I go to stage 3, 4, and I have a level 1 character pick up my level. It's like 100 and what level was it at that point? I can't remember, but it was a significantly higher level sword master. And I demonstrated that even this pitifully weak character could this level 1 character could damage the level 139 super fortress there by picking up a much stronger character and using them as a weapon. Characters can be used as weapons. That's what Power Strike and Energy Blast are. So if you've got a character that knows Power Strike, anytime that character is picked up and wielded as a weapon, Power Strike is the ability that will be used by the character wielding them. Uh, in that regard, combo skills are really weird. They're not used by the character that knows them, the character that actually has them in his skill list. That's not how they work. The way they work is that when that character is picked up, the character who has the other character picked up is the one who uses these. It's weird, but it has very, very important applications. And the most important one, I think, is that you can use these combo skills to level up your Overlord and guest characters for reincarnation much more quickly than you would be able to if you had to inflict gamble status, one at a time on the enemies in food dungeons, and hope that you're able to inflict it. Hope that they don't have any items on that reduce your chance of inflicting it. Hope that once it's inflicted, you get that 50-50 death blow. Just using a very powerful character and combo skills eliminates all of that randomness. It literally just becomes you go into the dungeon, you invite them, you invite your the character you're going to use as a weapon, and you just pick them up, and you can kill up to 6 of them in the area of effect of these two skills. They have a conical area of effect, and you can go into a food dungeon, and if you're precise with your where you aim it, you can take out 6 of the 3x3 grid. And then a thing you can do to optimize even further is you can invite, what do you call it, a clock tower on top of the remaining 3 enemies and hit all 3 of them, and they will be forced to skip their second turn. So you can literally um, invite, so you can use that to make it so that you are always able to clear a food dungeon in 2 turns without the enemy ever getting a turn. You don't have to go through the hassle of like lifting and throwing all 3 of them out of reach and hoping that they don't have shoes. You eliminate that hassle and that randomization too by just dropping a clock tower on them. So that I think is the meta method of developing Overlord and guest characters. Um, and in the future, I hope to make a video on that. Okay, so let's move on. So let's see, what is this? Experience? Oh yeah, okay. So why did I type the word experience here? Sorry, I wrote this up last night. I don't remember precisely what I was thinking. Yeah, I think this is relevant to, I think I wrote this thinking it was relevant to guest characters. Oh no, no, okay, no, 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 no. I understand now. I understand now. Okay, okay, okay. So we're talking about characters. All right. These first two items are the first two types of characters. Okay, but everything that falls under this category is everything related to that category. So I have next I'm going to talk about experience because experience is relative to the category of characters. Okay, that's all right. I remember now. Okay, so experience is important because you use it to level up your characters, obviously. You want to level up so that you can do things like learn skills, reincarnate, collect bonus points by stacking stored levels. Experience is a very important resource for making your characters stronger. Um, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, I don't think I need to explain that any further. So the best way to gain experience is food dungeons. Full stop. Like period. Food dungeons are just the fastest way to do it. And what a food dungeon is it's that dungeon. There's only one floor. There's a 3 by 3 grid of enemies, and the way you get one is you have a character who's level 100 plus wish for a free dungeon while holding a food item in their weapon slot. That's how you get a food dungeon. They have to be level 100 plus. That's why this is so important. Um, and in order to wish for them, you need mana. Mana comes from having the box and eyeball, so you can do the times 50 mana trick. And the eyeball is kind of optional, so you can do it without wishing for a facility. Um, But then in addition to mana, you also want food because food helps you achieve that times 50 experience multiplier. That's why this is important. I covered that earlier. Uh, because this gives you access to this. Yeah, you see the flow of it there. So from chef, you can see that at the end of all of these, we've got something that I listed up here. So the point that I kind of wanted to demonstrate with this sort of flow is that everything that is valuable in the game sort of flows from these five objectives. And once you've got them unlocked, you kind of have the keys to make yourself powerful. All right. So I think this is pretty well self-explanatory. You want gamble status because it helps to do food dungeons at the early point when you're not actually strong enough to just do them the simple way. Um, you use gamble because gamble, gives you that 50-50 chance of just killing the enemy. Um, so you get it. Okay, let's move on. So stars. In Makai Kingdom, some items will randomly have stars on them. That means that they're better. And incarnating in an item with stars makes your stats higher, and you can stack stars over time. The game remembers how many stars you have sort of incarnated through, and you get bonus points based on that. Um, I believe that the fastest way to farm stars is to just spam stage 3-4 as quickly as you can. Stage 3-4 is a stage where you go in, there's only one target. Destroying it always earns you 1,000 points. So you get everything that's in the bonus list, and it's highly likely that you're going to get some stars. I find on average you get like two. Sometimes you get none. Sometimes you get like four or five. It's random. But I think that farming 3-4 is the fastest way to do it, and you can even kind of kill two birds with one stone if every time you do 3-4, before you destroy the facility, you invite 3 food markets. If you do that, then you're getting stars, but you're also getting food, which means experience. And that's great because you're getting at the same time sort of the two things that you need in order to accrue bonus points. To accrue bonus points, you need stored stars and stored levels. You get stored levels from experience. Food helps with getting experience. So doing that quickly, inviting 3 food markets to 3-4 and then destroying the facility is just a very profitable thing that you can do, and you can spam it over and over again. And if you want to take Makai Kingdom to the extremes, you're going to be doing a lot of that. All right, so enough about stars. Let's move on. So mana. Mana is important for reincarnating. It's important for wishing for facilities. It's important for confining as your generic units as advanced classes. because sixth tier costs 5,000, fifth tier costs 2,000. Um, you need it for lots of stuff. You need it for making other wishes too, like making the post-game wishes. Mana is important. The way you get it is by typically destroying your own facilities, using the box trick to gain times 50 mana, and I've already explained how eyeball can help with that. Um, yeah, in the future, I am probably going to make a video about what I consider the meta of mana farming. Um, look forward to that. Okay, so now let's talk about confined items. Now, when I here specifically, what I'm talking about isn't the junk starred items that you'll confine just to stack stored stars. I'm talking about something different down here. What I'm talking about down here is actual good confined items. So that means topiary items. That's like your rocks, your trees, your flowers, your weeds. Um, if you look at the strategy guide, you can look at the confined values for every item in the game, and the only two that I can really recommend, like as far the only two that I consider meta are topiary and treasure. Um, Topiary are good. They're they're balanced, but not completely balanced. They will favor some stats over others, and it's almost like you can kind of look at them and tell what sort of class should be bound to what item. I mean, rocks have high defense and HP, and they have low like intelligence and tech, so they're clearly meant for like physical classes. Um, Whereas like weeds are for tech-based characters and flowers are for intelligence-based characters generally. You get it. Um, Treasure is different. The treasure items, and that's like the icon kind of looks like an amulet. They're equipment that give a bonus to all stats. And the interesting thing about them is that their confined values are equal in every stat, but they're good. Uh, the uh, the best one is called what is it called? Divine Symbol, and its base is 145% confined value in every stat. That is really good. So if that's the best in the game. So the absolute best, most meta confined item in the game, in my opinion, is a 5-star Divine Symbol. I have never seen one. That's actually kind of like one of my long-term goals in Makai Kingdom is to someday find a 5-star divine symbol and confine Zeta to it to get 348 points. Um, I actually I put like well over 300 hours into my PlayStation 2 uh, save file of Makai Kingdom, and I never, not only did I never see one, I never saw a 3 or 4 star divine symbol. The highest I found was a 2-star. So that's a long-term goal. I actually started to think that the random number generator might not even be capable of producing one. I don't know because I mean, random number generators don't actually generate random numbers. They're um, especially on game consoles like the PS2. They actually they they're a sequence of numbers. It's just that because there isn't necessarily a pattern in them, it seems random. But in other games, you can definitely manipulate and predict the RNG. So calling it an RNG is kind of a misnomer. But anyway, so yeah, topiary and treasure items are definitely the best items to confine to in order to have good stats. That's the purpose of these is to have good stats. And the place that you get them is from free dungeons. Um, I don't know what I meant by Putting mana in character. I guess because you need mana in order to wish for free dungeons, and you need characters in order to actually have success in the free dungeons. But yeah, confined items are something that you have to do free dungeons in order to get. That's kind of just how it is. Um, you also want to be checking the bonus list anytime you do a food dungeon because sometimes you'll see like decent topiary items that you'll want to make sure that you build a combo there in order to get access to them. The thing about oh, I should mention this here. So in free dungeons, it's pretty easy. Oh, it's very easy to score 300 points or higher. All you need to do is do a 7 or 8 part combo, and there's always 100 points worth of enemies in a food dungeon. So a 7 or 8 part combo will earn you 310 or 380 points respectively. So that's easy. But there is actually a way to get more. The way that you get more is you invite a food market into onto the field and throw an enemy into it, and that food market will start spawning enemies. It'll start spawning pumpkin, carrot, and corn enemies. Pumpkin, carrot, and corn, I think. Yeah, it doesn't spawn apples. That's right. It'll start spawning pumpkin, carrot, and corn enemies, and each of them will be worth, I think it's between 0 and 9 points. I don't remember. They're not worth very much, but you can earn points and you can work your way up to enough to afford or enough to earn whatever it is on that bonus list that you see that you want. You can do it until you get 1,000 points and beyond. So anytime you're doing a food dungeon, you want to check the bonus list and see if there's any must-have items in there, because you never know. You might, if you don't check it, you might be missing out on something absolutely amazing. Okay, so I think I've covered absolutely everything you need to know about characters and acquiring them and developing them. That's kind of that's arguably the most time-consuming thing in Makai Kingdom. Um, it's a contender. So next, let's talk about vehicles. Vehicles are going to be much more straightforward. You'll see that there isn't nearly as much information to this. Um, so there are two kinds of vehicles, kind of like with characters. You've got your generic vehicles. There are, I believe, 13 types of them, and the only place they come from, outside of the tank that you always get at the end of Chapter 3, the only way to get generic vehicles is that they appear in the bonus list of both chapter content, Overlord dungeons, and free dungeons. That's the way to get these generic vehicles. That's things like the hopper, the driller, the sonic blaster, et cetera, et cetera. I think there's 13 varieties of them. Um, Generic vehicles are not very good. The exception, I think, like the one that's really, really useful, and I really, really recommend trying to get one. Maybe even farming. Spending like up to an hour or two farming to get one early is the motorcycle. I forget the name of it. I think it's like Yamazaki or something like that. It was definitely a portmanteau of like two brands of motorcycle. So I guess it was like Kawasaki and Yamaha to get Yamazaki. I think that's the joke. Anyway, um, the motorcycle is really good because its second skill, it's called Donut. It has an area of effect similar to like Tornado Slash or Circle of Life. So, it's just a circle around the cast, or actually, no, it's not around the caster. It's like a circle in front of the caster, but it's big enough to hit all 9 of the scrap metal in a food dungeon. It's big enough to hit all 9 of the enemies there, and it has a chance of inflicting gamble. So it's really good to take into a food dungeon, use on all 9 of the enemies there, and there's an extremely good chance that at least one of them will be inflicted with gamble. That's much, much quicker and more convenient than going in there and using like bomb skills one at a time, hoping that you get that infliction. So I really recommend trying to get your hands on a motorcycle early and using it to speed up your food dungeons early on when you're relying on gamble to clear them. So motorcycle is great. The rest of the generic vehicles, their stats just don't really justify using them very much. And that's just how I feel about them. Like if you're somebody who likes them and you think they're fun and worth playing with, cool, go for it. It's just me. I've never really found them all that interesting, except for the motorcycle. All right, so that's generics. You've also got, in addition to the generics, there are two special vehicles, and that's the Yoshitsuna and the Super Robo Suit. You get both of those by for wishing for the post-game battles that involve them, and then once you defeat them, you gain access to them. The Yoshitsuna is amazing. The Yoshitsuna is the most powerful thing in the game. It is absolutely incredible. It's amazingly useful for free dungeons. It's an amazing tool for developing characters. You can literally use this to develop 10 generic characters at the same time. You can level up 10 generic characters at the same time with them. Not only level them up, you can use it to earn stored levels uh, with generic characters extremely quickly. Um, I highly, highly recommend earning the Yoshitsuna as early as you can, uh, putting the work in to develop it and using it because it's awesome. Um, yeah, the Yoshitsuna is incredible. Unfortunately, the Super Robo Suit is not nearly as good. I really wish the Super Robo Suit were better. It's cool. I love how it looks, uh, but the stats are just not comparable to the Yoshitsuna at all. Its base stats aren't nearly as high. It only has 6 total um, passenger seats or slots as compared to the Yoshitsuna's 10, and it can't hold a candle. If you gear it up, it can hold its own in level 9,999 free dungeons, but I really don't feel like it's worth the work. Whereas the Yoshitsuna definitely is. So yeah, that's how I feel about those two. So in order to develop vehicles, it's a little bit different. Well, it's quite different from developing characters. Vehicles only need two things in order to develop because they don't reincarnate at all. So that simplifies things a bit. Vehicles need experience, which they earn by making kills, and vehicles also need MT. MT is the currency that you use with the engineer and the factory. You use it to repair your vehicles. You use it to purchase vehicle parts, and you also use it to level up your vehicles. Um, in order to level up a vehicle, in order to level up one of these special vehicles to the max, it takes a huge amount of MT. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. First, let me talk about experience though. So the difficult thing with earning experience for vehicles is that vehicles can't eat food. That essentially means that vehicles are not capable at all of achieving that times 50 multiplier, which is really unfortunate. It would be awesome if there were a way to do it. There just isn't. Um, the best way to level up a vehicle is to you you take it into a food dungeon and you drop 3 academies on top of the vehicle, to where it shows damage. Like it'll be 0 damage if your vehicle is decently developed, but you drop an academy on top of the vehicle, and you do that 3 times. You can only do it 3 times because you can only invite 3 facilities per battle. But each time you drop an academy on the vehicle, it gets a plus 30% experience buff, and that stacks. So you do it 3 times, that's plus 90%. You do that, and then you have your vehicle enter one of the academies and exit, and it'll get the plus 50% experience facility bonus from the academy. It benefits from that. That'll get you to a total of plus 140%. So they're at 240% experience. That's the most you can get on your vehicle. Um, the only thing you can do to further increase your experience gain is to feed the targets that your vehicle is about to kill. So you take it into a food dungeon, you feed the enemies. Um, the way that I like to do it is if the vehicle is still not strong enough to kill food dungeon enemies the old-fashioned way, I'll have it. I'll use gamble status, and when I do gamble status, I'm usually uh, you know what? Let me show you what I do. Um, yeah, I'll actually show you. I've just been I've just been talking this whole time. Let me show you something here. I'm turning on my controller. All right, so I've got a character. Um, yeah, this one. This character is exactly level 556, and I actually used a hammer to level her down to that specific level for a particular reason, and that's because level 556 is the lowest level you can be in order to produce to wish for a food dungeon with at least 9,999 levels worth of enemy in it. I know that's kind of complicated. Let me explain. When you wish for a food dungeon, um, the enemies in the food dungeon will always be 2 times the level of the person making the wish, and there will always be 9 of them. That means that the number of enemy levels there, sort of the total of the levels of all of the enemies there, that number will always be 18 times the level of the person who makes the wish. So I did the math, and if you want to be able to throw 8 enemies out of bounds and have the remaining one at at level 9,999, the lowest level that is capable of achieving that, the lowest level character who's capable of making that wish and achieving that is level 556. And the important thing about that is the higher level you are, the more expensive it becomes to wish for uh, dungeons. So level 556 is the most mana efficient way to produce a single level 9,999 enemy in a food dungeon. I hope my explanation there makes sense. And what I did is with this character is you see she's got a lot of mana. Um, I brought her into stage 3, 4, and I did, the box trick. And I had her like lift. I combined the box trick and power strike in order to have her farm a ridiculous amount of mana really quickly. Combining those two principles means that absolutely any character can earn just a massive amount of mana uh, with very little time and very little effort. So that's something that's really good to understand. That's good for uh, especially for Overlord characters because they need a lot of mana in order to wish for reincarnation over and over again. So uh, knowing about that, combo skill plus box trick is important. But anyway, so let me show you this. Not balloon. So wish for a new dungeon. Yeah. So you'll notice that she's got over, 3 million mana, and it only costs a little over 65,000 to wish for um, one of these dungeons. And right there it says enemy level. There'll be, 1,112. Um, if she were uh, if she were one level lower, um, oh yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. So if she were okay, so 9,999 divided by 9 would be 1,111, right? So uh, if it were possible to have every enemy on the map be that level, 1111, that would be the most efficient way to do this. But because their level is always going to be 2 times mine, I can't do an odd number like that. And if I undershoot it, the final enemy is going to be like, um, God, what is that? 9,990. If I were level 555, the enemy would be 9,990 once I was done, throwing 8 of them out of bounds. So that's why 556 is the level you want to be if you want to do this. I know this is really kind of a nitpicky thing. It's not, you don't have to be that efficient, but this is just how I think. This is what I consider optimal. Make fun of me if you want. So anyway, yeah. So getting back to vehicles, um, the next important thing about vehicles is MT. I finished talking about experience. Let me talk about MT. So the in addition to experience, you're going to need MT to level up, and that's because let me show you that too. Uh, yeah, you go over here. Even if you have the experience, well, no, okay, I've got the MT. Wait, no, it says, okay, yeah, it says available. I've got the experience to level up here, but I don't have enough MT. When I try to hit the button, it gives me that noise. Um, so you need both. You can't have just one or the other. The way that you earn MT is you first farm hell. I'm going to make a video about this in the future, how to do it. And then, wait, is that 1.1 billion? Yeah. And then you go to your shop, you purchase the most expensive item you have access to, and you purchase as many of them as you can afford. And then you go over here to your, what do you call this, mechanic or engineer, and you convert all of them to materials. And that's how you earn the ridiculous amount of MT you need in order to finance leveling up your vehicles to the max. Uh, on PlayStation 2, the max you could get to was level 5,981. I don't know if that's the case in the PC version. I'm playing the PC version. I don't know if that's the case. I should be finding out soon because look at me, I'm 5,557. So I mean, I could do that today if I set my mind to it. Um, but yeah, on PlayStation 2, uh, at level 5,981, the MT counter that calculates the cost in MT of leveling up your vehicle would overflow and go into negatives. This was a bug. It would overflow and it would go into negatives, and at that point, it would be impossible to level up your vehicle any further. So your Yoshitsuna and your Super Robo Suit would never be able to get past 5,981. Uh, you can find generic vehicles that are a higher level than that, and that's the only way to get a vehicle that's higher level than 5,981, at least in the PlayStation 2 version. Um, in fact, I seem to recall one time I actually found a vehicle that was 9,999. Um, I never really used it though. But anyway, yeah. So I think that's about all you need to know about. Oh no, no, no. Okay. So in order to okay, yeah. So I said that you have to farm hell in order to convert it to MT. Let me tell you the quick way to farm hell. What you do is, I could just maybe I could just show you real quick. Yeah. So what I do is I go to this stage, meet Mickey, and this process takes a couple minutes, but you'll earn 1 billion hell. Oh shoot, yeah, I messed up. I'm not going to do a bad take. I forgot I equipped her with food. No matter. Yeah, I'm not going to do a bad take. So, oh, I wanted that there. Okay. All right. So here's how I do it. So yeah, first I invite a balloon wielder uh, just to get rid of this guy. And the reason I use a balloon is to get rid of the character attacking. Then I invite a couple of extremely weak characters here, and I have them lift up the two remaining enemies. These guys are always unarmed. You can always lift them. Okay. Then I invite these. These are level 9,999 food markets. They were wished for by my max level chef. You invite both of those onto the field. This will make sense in a minute, I promise. And then you kind of drag both of those enemies into your food markets. Okay. And then you pass a turn. Now you want to lose this conflict. These two cat kids, I made them out of carrots, so they would just be pitifully weak. Carrots have the lowest confined value in the game by far. Um, so you'll notice that these two food markets are now producing a max level enemy every turn. Every single turn, they produce a max level enemy. I'm going to skip to turn 6. And the reason I got rid of that sword master is because you'll notice that even though my tome is right here, none of these enemies are aggressive to the tome. That is a feature of this stage. Um, they seem to just not attack the tome. I've only seen them the whole time I've been doing this, and you saw I leveled the Yoshitsuna to like 5,500. Um, I've only seen them attack the tome once. I don't know why they did it. It's extremely rare for them to attack the tome. Um, so you can consider it safe. You might still want to save, because like right now, since I don't have any of my own forces on the field, if they do attack the tome, it's game over. So you might want to save. But like I said, it happens extremely rarely. I've done this a lot, and I've only seen it once. It seemed like a fluke. All right, so now both of these facilities are completely full of enemies except for the final slot. So I'm going to invite some bait onto the field to bait them out, and then I'm going to pass a turn so they both fill up that final slot. So here's my bait. This is just another character made from a carrot, so it'll be one shot by like absolutely anything. And you pass a turn. Now, most of these enemies are going to, jump out of the facility and target my bait. It's kind of disappointing when one of them winds up jumping on top of another one, because they wind up carrying, like, yeah, that fighter will wind up carrying that pumpkin. Yeah. And that means that that pumpkin has sort of almost become an item, and I can't attack him anymore. So when that happens, it's disappointing. It reduces the number of these that you can kill, and reduces the amount of hell you earn. But usually that doesn't happen so much that you won't earn the cap. This also happens too. Sometimes they don't all jump out of the facility. That's okay too. That's why I go to all the trouble of completely filling them up instead of uh, just doing enough, or just kind of doing like 8. You want them to completely fill up in case a lot of that happens, so that you're still earning the cap. And the cap, I should have mentioned this earlier. The cap on hell that you can earn in any map is 1,000,000,000 minus 1, and this is a quick way to earn that much. So what I just did is I invited a sword wielder to the field. I dropped a shop on top of his head. Doing that gives him a plus 30% money buff, and he has the plus 80% money passive. Where is it? Yeah, he's got money plus 80% right there. So he's got plus 80%, and then he's got plus 30%, and then I entered and exited it to get plus 50%. So that's a total of what, plus 160? So he's at 2.6% mana gain right now. So now all we do is target as many of these as I can with 7 sens, and they all die. I highly, highly recommend making Chef the first class that you leveled to 9,999. If you're serious about getting to like the pinnacle of power in Makai Kingdom, it's definitely the most efficient to do a chef first so you can get access to those max level food markets. And then you just clear the stage. Yeah, and we made a billion minus one hell there. So that is how in a couple minutes you farm a billion hell. And then all you do is use a turbo controller to, like a turbo controller or a macro or whatever, to buy a bunch of expensive items, and you just convert them to materials. One other important thing, I should have mentioned this earlier, the levels of your, what do you call this class? The levels of your professor and your mechanic uh, are factored into things like the cost of repair and the amount of materials that you get from what do you call it? From converting to materials. So before you start on this process, make sure that you have a professor who is high enough level and an engineer who is high enough level to give you the best exchange rate and the biggest discount off of the cost of modification. Otherwise, you're going to be doing it really inefficiently, and it's going to take a lot more time than it would if you just put a food dungeon or two into leveling them up enough to give yourself good exchange rates and good discount off of the cost of modification. So that is how you develop vehicles. So let's move on. Or before I move on, let me do this. Wanna I wanna make this point. Um, yeah. Okay. So I saved. All right. So let's see. This guy. I think I can just let's see. Eliminate unit. Okay. My engineer there. So let's look at the value. So my first item here, this devil stone, let's see how many zeros is that? One, two, three, four, five, six zeros. So he's offering 3 million for that devil stone. Remember that, okay? I want to show you something. Eliminate unit. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to save this. It doesn't matter. Just watch this. Remember, he was offering us 3 million for it. He's only offering, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1,080,000. He's offering us like 1/3 of what he was offering us previously. Okay, that shows you how important it is to make sure that you've got a decently leveled mechanic, because otherwise you're screwing yourself. You're going at like 1/3 the speed that you would be going. And the same thing goes for the professor. Um, Maybe I can demonstrate that too. Let's see. Modify vehicle. So right now she wants let's see how many 18 million, like 18.5 million. Let's see what happens if I delete her. Eliminate unit. We'll replace her with whoever. Oh. I'm not going to save, so it doesn't matter. Create a character. It was like 18.5 million, right? Here you are. Let's see what happens. Yeah, look at how much that went up. 61 million now. That's almost 4 times as much. So before you start this ridiculous business of of developing your vehicles, definitely make sure that you have these two classes up to snuff, because if not, you are screwing yourself royally. All right, I don't want to save reset. All right, so all right, moving along in my dissertation. So that's just about everything about vehicles. Okay, there isn't that much left to say. So apart from characters and vehicles, you've got facilities. Those are straightforward. You, you wish for them. You spend mana. You already know how to farm mana. Only generics can wish for facilities, and certain facilities are class specific. You can see what they are in various guides on the internet. I'm not gonna recite it here, but it's stuff like only the merchant can wish for the shop, only a healer or a medic can wish for the hospital, etc., etc. You get it. Um, Facilities are straightforward. The exception is the doghouse. You only get one doghouse. It's always level one. If you delete it, you can't have another one. So, like, if you're a completionist, don't get rid of your doghouse. So that's about all there is to say about facilities, really. Like I said earlier, I recommend getting a chef to level 9,999 first in order to give you access to those food markets because those are just you saw how quick it is to farm a billion hell. It's like 2.5 minutes, and that's just the quickest, easiest way to level up your vehicles. And the Yoshitsuna is worth it as long as you're doing it efficiently with a good engineer and a good professor and using the smart method of farming hell. And getting to level 9,999 and farming the mana that you need for the facilities doesn't take all that long if you do it the smart way. So don't be intimidated by it. Um, so yeah, that's about it for facilities. And finally, the final thing is your item list. Um, this is uh, this is a contender with characters for the most time consuming. The way to get items is to do free dungeons and food dungeons. Um, I mean that this category here, that's your post game. That's how you're going to find your top tier equipment, your starred items, your crown items once in a once in a blue moon. Your powerful topiary items, your powerful vehicle equipment. Uh, I mean, anything you want for your item list that you can't get, from the shop or whatever, you're going to be doing free dungeons and food dungeons. And in the future, I'll probably make a video on the smart way to do that. But I mean, this is my dissertation. This is Makai Kingdom in a nutshell. Um, so that's that. Um, yeah. So I hope that somebody somewhere finds some of this useful. I mean, you can probably tell I really love this game. I and some of this information, like I said, some of this information I haven't seen anywhere else. Very few people seem to know about using what do you call it, combo skills uh, to develop Overlord characters. So that's good to know. I haven't been able to find anyone talk about the 1 billion limit per stage or per floor on Hell. Um, it's it's kind of obscure that the level of your engineer and the level of your professor are factored into things like the cost of renovation and the amount of MT that you get from conversion. So I think this is all really, really useful information. Um, I really I've been wanting to do a video like this for a while where I just kind of give a dissertation on how I see the entire game. And I kind of impromptu, I kind of squeezed in that demonstration of farming hell too. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, so all in all, yeah, I mean, this is Makai Kingdom. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you find some of this information useful. I hope you enjoy Makai Kingdom. I hope I mean, I love the game. I hope that more people come to love it too. I was really excited about the PC release for a long time. I've been really enjoying it. I've been enjoying making videos about it, and look forward to making more. And I hope you'll watch them. And thanks for watching, and see you again next time. Goodbye.